Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. Oh, my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. It's an amazing episode because Andre Gower boards the mothership. You know him from Monster Squad. Now he appears in The Demons Within. Come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Gower. Thanks so much for going to Versus Stars podcast.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
It's totally my pleasure, sir. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours, going back way back from on the Monster Squad. So thank you so much. It's a big honor to have you on the show.
Again, it's always fun to circle back and reconnect and talk about fun stuff.
Indeed. So I always thought a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love of acting and who your earliest influences?
Inspired acting. Well, it's I don't know because it started so early. When you start something like that at the age of 5, I'm not really sure that there's inspiration, so to speak, more than direction or instruction of being put in situations and seeing if you like it or not and continuing or not. Uh, I think I grew up even as a tyke, enjoying movies, enjoying animation cartoons on Saturday, enjoying sitcoms and TV, and we didn't have a lot of kids programming when I was 5. We had PBS, we had the Muppets, and we had Sesame Street, and those all seemed like fun, and everybody's having a great time. And commercials were huge, and I started at such a young age, so just kind of got into it and took to it like a duck kind of does water, and just kept swimming. And over time, you watch people that you really like. You think that they're good, or they're fun or funny. And when you're super young, you don't know that there's like an art or a craft or a skill or a thing. It's just to me, I never really viewed it as that, and I didn't. You study a little bit or you work on stuff as you're growing up to get a little bit better, but I just felt comfortable. So you have a kind of like this, kind of natural affinity to, carry on conversations and play other characters and basically bullshit. So it's playing make believe as a kid. We all do that anyway, whether there's a camera there or not. So
Right.
if you have a good imagination, it just kind of worked. Now, as I get older, or as I was getting older as a preteen and teen, you see actors and actresses that, you're like, wow, there's a difference to the ones that aren't very good. And there are some that are really, really good. And I was very fortunate enough to actually do a lot of television shows and with people, a lot of really giant names. And so you got a good kind of cross section of dealing with, these amazing, literally some icons, that are very well known and have a lot of gravitas, around them. And you kind of see that kind of burn off of them a little bit, just kind of radiates, and that's neat. So to get a firsthand feeling of that, in the room, or actually feel that that radiation. But growing up, I loved comedies, I loved sci-fi, I loved horror movies. So that's the wide swath, but there's some greats out there, and Paul Newman, Robert Redford ended up being I think Redford had like a cool thing and a style. Whether as he gets older, it's kind of the same thing. So that's neat. But being around movies and in movies, and my sister. I mentioned Paul Newman because it's probably one of the first people that you think of in my world, because my sister was in the Towering Inferno. My sister was the little girl in the Towering Inferno that Paul Newman saves, and in the burning building throughout the whole second half of the movie. And so you watch this guy and you learn that he's a big famous guy, and then there's Steve McQueen in there, and there's William Holden, and there's Richard Chamberlain, and there's Faye Dunaway, and there's Jennifer Jones, and there's Fred Astaire. And then a couple years later, I end up doing a movie with Fred Astaire, and it's kind of interesting to watch all these amazing faces and names, not just to enjoy what they do, but to actually work with them. So it's very fortunate, and you got to appreciate that opportunity.
Now, do you remember when acting became something that you said you kind of fell into or were directed towards as a kid, to something that you actually decided this is going to be a career?
Well, it was almost opposite. I mean, it didn't stop. It just kind of kept going on an upward trajectory, as
Mm.
I got older. And then when I became a teenager, this is obviously, for your viewers and listeners that, there was a pre-internet day. There
Yes.
was a day that the internet didn't exist. And, the media was magazines and newspapers and, and of course television. And, so our internet and our, interaction was, teen magazines. And I felt fortunate enough to, of all the kids that were in the business of the, 12, 13, 16, 17 years old of age that were of some level or popularity enough to be in the teen magazine scene. And I started kind of young in that too, and it went all the way through high school. So I don't think it was ever going to not be a thing during that time, because you're fortunate enough to do work and work enough and get some sort of notoriety and to have that recognition and be featured in magazines and events and things like that. It was actually kind of opposite. A lot of people go through high school and they say, I want to be in this industry, so I'm going to go and do that industry. I
Yeah.
went through high school and I said, I have an opportunity to do something that I really want to do. I need to quit my career to go do that for a little bit. And it's a very kind of, it's almost opposite of what most people do. But doing the opposite of what most people do is fairly on brand for me.
So what was that choice that you decided after for high school?
Well, it was, at the end of high school, I'd always been an athlete, always played organized sports, and I played, multiple sports in high school and enjoyed it. And, I took a big affinity to the sport of basketball. And being short and not being ever the tallest guy on any basketball team, that was sort of a challenge. And of all the sports that I could have played in college, I decided I wanted to play basketball in college. And mainly because 9 out of 10 people said that's never going to happen.
Mm.
And so I think that was my first kind of major go fuck yourself campaign. And I worked at it and had some some good contacts and some people that were willing to actually help me, and I ended up in an amazing place and played at 2 different colleges and had an amazing experience and met some of my best friends, and and then you come back you can always come back.
Well, like I said, for basketball, there's Muggsy Bogues for people who don't know, who also I think was like 5'3" or 5 foot something.
Yeah, Muggsy's even shorter than I am, so good on Muggsy.
Yeah.
But that was that era too. There was a handful,
Well, so what
but
did you
not
like?
many.
So what do you love so much about basketball, other than to be able to prove to people that you could do it? Was there something about the aspect of a team sport that intrigued you?
Yeah, I tennis was my first sport, and I loved playing tennis, and I loved singles or doubles, and I didn't really get real competitive with it. I grew up at a tennis courts and playing with my dad and things like that. So that was fun. Basketball was just different because it's a constant motion game.
Mm.
You've nothing ever really kind of stops. Baseball is great too. There's a strategy, but there's a lot of dead time in baseball. There's a little less dead time in football, but I never played football, and I enjoyed it. And football is very complex, and so is basketball. It's a game of motion. And then when you become a student of the game and have great teachers and coaches and instructors, game basketball is a game of it's a game of motion. It's a game of angles. It's a game of timing, and it's it I just went out there and ran my ass off and tried to play as hard as I could, because that was the one ability that I had, was to work harder than anybody else. And that's what allowed me to be out there. And then you can try to get a little bit better to hold your own. And that's what I tried to do for a number of years.
Is there a through line and for a skill set of acting, basketball, and filmmaking that seems to connect with you?
I think it does, because I was I'm a natural point guard. So that was always my natural position. And point guards, if you got any basketball heads, that are watching, they really kind of got to know both sides of it. They also have to know what they're supposed to do. They have to know what everybody else is supposed to do. And in complex systems and teams, everything runs through that position. And I was fortunate enough to have a great, first coach at my first school, which was Lewisburg College in North Carolina, with Coach Enid Drake. And he was an old school dude. And he didn't really care about wins and losses. He didn't like to lose, but it was about teaching the game and teaching these kids that were coming into his school um, how to become men and how to use basketball as a vehicle to achieve that.
Hmm.
Do the right thing, do it well, do it hard, um, and appreciate your opportunities, and that kind of comes through as well. But in the actual mechanics of it and the overall kind of development or production of how things, and seeing, being a point guard, seeing things 2 3 4 steps ahead, yeah, that helps in being creative. That helps in definitely in the mechanics of, say, production, or thinking of a project or putting pieces together. And if you're a big picture person, or you can see the bird's eye view, or the now they call it the 30,000 foot view, and see where everything's supposed to line up before it actually happens, then things tend to come a little easier if you kind of have that perspective.
So, what was it that led you back to filmmaking then? And was it difficult to transition back into that world?
Not really. Like, I took the college years off, and probably a couple after that, because I wanted to kind of experience the opportunities on my own, and in different places. And I have a mass comm journalism degree, and so I ended up just falling into these different opportunities to work at different newspapers, and work on magazines, and mostly sports. And I was really interested in getting into sports broadcasting during that time. And I didn't. I was working in print for a while, and then you never kind of really leave, the industry. If you grew up in it and it's in your bones, if it's in your blood, it's different. But if it's in your bones, it doesn't ever go away. Like you can lose all your blood and get some more back, but your bones ain't going anywhere. And so you kind of put a foot back in it for a little bit, hang out, do this, see what it is. Didn't didn't hit it too hard, but enjoyed it. And then look, boy, it's been it's 2023, so at the end, or the spring of 2006 is when we had this Monster Squad kind of resurgence, and didn't know that was going to be a thing, and could never have expected that to actually transpire. And just prior to that, I had I lived and worked in Las Vegas with my the guy that was my brother-in-law at the time. He's no longer my brother-in-law. And working in the hotel and casino world, and the gaming world, and development and creating projects. And I got to work on a lot of cool things, and create materials and storylines and characters. And so that kind of fed that creative feeling. And then just kind of being in and out of LA in the business, and working on a thing here and there was great. And then I was, this Monster Squad resurgence kind of really popped in '06, and we thought that would last about a year or two, and it hasn't stopped.
Well, I will say, as a fan, like I said, I still remember. I think I told you last time we spoke on the other show that I still remember watching Monster Squad all the time as a kid. So I think the fans knew it deserved a resurgence. I think we all knew that.
Yeah, well, we didn't, because all we knew up until the 20th anniversary year was that this movie bombed in the box office. And there was a handful of people out there that remembered it or gave a shit. And but though we did that first cast reunion screening at the Alamo Drafthouse, the original single Alamo Drafthouse in downtown Austin, we didn't know what that was, that was going to be what it was. And certainly very cool to be a part of something like that, because I don't see a lot of things like that have happened, or have happened since, or going to happen in that regard. And it's very cool to be a part of that. Me, myself, Ryan Lambert, Ashley Bank, all the people that enjoyed kind of all that attention over the last 15, 16, 17 years. Yeah, that's something kind of cool.
So for those of listeners who may or may not know, you made a great film called Wolfman's Got Nards, which is a documentary film on Monster Squad. So what inspired you to decide to go into the filmmaking the documentary field?
Well, it's a couple years prior to that, I'd been working on a handful of projects, some TV concepts, and some other shows. And so the creative side, the development side, the filmmaking side of it, or showmaking side of it, was already kind of happening. And we had been sort of in this Monster Squad resurgence for 10 years almost at that time. And let's say 8 or 9 leading up to the 10th year. And we'd been going to conventions and appearances and all these great events, that all these fans. And after the first couple years of the kind of like ride, I started, really listening to the stories that the fans were kind of saying and realized that this movie really, really affected people. And it wasn't just a fandom thing, and it wasn't just oh, I love it, it takes me back, it's nostalgia. That's a little bit of it. It's not just I harken back from my youth. That's a little bit of it too. But this movie, for some reason, whether it was the characters or the story or the visuals or whatever it was, really connected with a lot of people in a very, very deep and visceral way. And I started to listen to those stories differently instead of just kind of appreciating them and signing the autographs and taking the photos with the awesome fans, because it just kept rolling. And it didn't get stale, it got stronger, which was also fascinating to me. And the more we did, the deeper the fan base got, and the wider it got, and the louder it got. And I realized that those stories were a story. And I thought it would be very cool coming up to the 30th anniversary year, to actually kind of put those on camera and kind of tell our perspective, as the kid that was in the Stephen King Rules shirt, and then have Ryan to be a part of it and actually be a part of it. And my original concept for the documentary that I thought was going to happen was nowhere near what we ended up with, thankfully. And I ended up in a very serendipitous situation, with what is the luckiest thing that I could have with running meeting Henry McComas and Wes Caldwell and Aaron Kunkel and the group at Pilgrim Media Group, who were all fans of the film and knew it, and were all filmmakers and production people, and really got behind this project. And we teamed up and took it to the studio execs and pitched the project, and they loved it, and we got to work on it very quickly, right in the middle of two other big projects that I was working on. So things were going pretty fast right then. And we spent about 10 or 11 months actually shooting footage, and we were editing in real time. I wasn't editing. Henry and Wes and Aaron were editing, and I was kind of point guarding the whole thing and seeing steps ahead and setting things up and playing defense and running fast breaks and setting other tournaments up, and so to speak. So see how it's coming back, Jeff? Got it?
Yes, indeed.
And it was just a whirlwind of a year, and came out with what I think is, and I'm separating myself from actually being a part of it, but I can't comment enough on the work that these guys put into this project, and made it just an incredible story,
Well,
and good documentary that plays like a story, plays like a narrative story, and takes you back and rides you on a roller coaster ride, and brings you up to date and leaves you wanting more. And those guys did a great job, as we all worked on this for a long time.
well, for the fans who may or may not know, is that Wolfman's Got Nards has recently appeared on the Blu-ray as an extra on the Monster Squad, obviously Blu-ray disc. So how cool was it to get the documentary connected now directly to the film? And does that kind of bring the whole experience of your time at Monster Squad full circle now?
I mean, it can, and it certainly does. The product you're referring to now is actually an international release. That's the German release, which is awesome, because they did a new Blu-ray release of Monster Squad, and they put the doc as a companion piece, which was their choice, which was great. We had a couple opportunities domestic to even talk about that, but we really wanted our original release, which was in 2022, 21. We had a little, I don't want to say stumble, but we ran into some very Hollywood stuff, trying to get this movie actually released after our amazing film festival season, and the very typical Hollywood stuff. And we got it out, and we really wanted it to be a standalone piece, first, not a companion piece, and not like an extra feature. Because a lot of people are like, oh, we could do a Monster Squad release and has this documentary as an extra feature. It's like, we didn't put this amount of work and blood, sweat, and tears into a companion piece. So this is a standalone thing. And I thought we had a great release. We had a great product. And what's interesting is our domestic release, which you can buy on Blu-ray on Amazon, or you can watch on Tubi or Pluto TV, or you can digitally download it, iTunes, Amazon, stuff like that. Looks, sounds, and plays fantastic. But our domestic distributor didn't really care about the 60 minutes of extra features that we produced. And we really liked those 60 minutes. And so we were trying to find, hopefully one of the international releases would actually want to do that. And this German release is actually the first thing that has the extra features on it. So it's pretty cool. No one has seen those unless you get this German release. We're working on some other things to get it out domestically as a side piece, but we had to wait for all this, kind of distribution stuff to start happening.
So, so those of us who are not German, how are you going to get those extra 60 minutes?
Well, that's I'm working on that too with some other things as we speak. But a lot of people can order that German DVD or that Blu-ray 2 set. It's kind of cool to have different releases anyway. So if you want to, you can look on my social or look on at the Squad Doc, and a couple of the fans have already had they've already ordered them and got their piece. I think you just have to have an international player, right? I'm not a tech head anymore, and but a lot of physical media collectors out there have it. And hopefully this will be a great release. We've got other countries that are getting ready to start releasing the documentary as well. It'd be interesting to see what they're doing also.
Is it subtitled or dubbed for us who once again are not able to speak German?
It's in the movie's I believe this German release is in English with German subtitles.
Okay.
I don't know if they dubbed it or not. I haven't seen it. They're sending me a copy of it, very graciously, but I haven't got it yet because I'm not at home right now. I've been on the road for a little bit.
So, I mean, that's absolutely awesome. Now that the documentary is finished and you had a chance to now reflect over not only the documentary but your time in Monster Squad, what is it after looking at the documentary as a whole now? Did you realize about either the film or the process or even just making the documentary film itself that you learned, once it's completed?
I think I learned that those stories that I was hearing needed to be told. And I think we hit the mark in representing, because everybody that watches it goes, yes, that's me. That's how I felt. I watched it. I passed around the tape in my neighborhood. I told my friends about it at school. My dad and I went to the drive-in to see it, and then it was gone, or I saw it on HBO. So I think the accomplished feeling of hitting the mark of what we were trying to go for is an awesome feeling. But even it's been out and people still see it and they watch it on the regular. Or they put it on in the background as their comfort movie while they're vacuuming the house or something, or feeding the cat, doing the dishes. That's awesome. And just overall as a producer or a filmmaker or whatever it is that you want to call yourself, when you put something together and you see it finish and it's out there and the world can actually grab it, that's an amazing feeling because not everybody gets to do that. So that's pretty rad also. But I think with the story and the doc, it almost, I don't know if it answers a lot of questions, but it answers some feelings that people have. I think it gives a lot of people some even more connection that they weren't able to verbalize themselves or kind of manifest. This what I was trying to explain. They're like, I've always been trying to explain to everybody what this did to me or how I feel about this movie, that you can meet someone and go, I know all about it. Or they talk to somebody and goes, I've never heard of it. And, so everybody always feels still like the misfit or the outcast, which is what the Squad themselves were. That's where they found themselves to be part of their tribe. And, I think to wrap up your, to kind of full circle your question finally, is that you can be older and old now, like I am, and still be part of a cool group and find your squad and go off and beat back the monsters of the world. And I feel making this movie, we connect with the fans more. We meet great friends along the way that I'm still friends with, that we are still friends with, and the crew itself, Henry and Wes and those guys. I mean, we're working on projects now, so it's that's kind of cool too. So we just don't have a treehouse.
Are you able to drop hints on what the new projects are that you're working on?
Actually, what it is, it's a handful of things, but one is a great genre piece. It's written by Henry McComas, who, in my mind, is a very, very good storyteller, and very skilled in getting nuance in there of different things, because he's a different generation than I am, and so he brings some really cool stuff into and some complexities into storytelling and characters that I would probably miss by about that much. And working on he and I just work really well together. For some reason, because I think that gap in a little bit of age helps, but the desire and the drive and the interest in sort of the same things, but also being very different, also being very different people, is also a good thing when you're trying to collaborate. And we just work it, and we'll sit around, and we go to our favorite place to eat all the time, and I call it my office. It's just a restaurant, and I spend most of my days at. And we just sit there and just break stories just on random stuff. This thing right now is a great genre piece. I can't talk too much about it, especially when things are going on in the industry now. But the script is out. People like it. We're looking at some awesome names to hopefully attach as the leads to it. But it's got some really cool genre vibe to it, and some if you like camping, that's all I'm going to say. So if you like camping, that's cool.
And I assume when you're ready, you'll come back on here and talk about that one as well.
I would love to. We'll have everybody. Henry and I would definitely love to talk about
Oh,
it. And
that'd be awesome.
yeah, it'd be great, because it's something that I'm really I really want to get this off the ground and made. So because Henry's attached to actually direct it as his first narrative thing. He's done a ton of production, a ton of documentaries, and with his storytelling ability and his acumen technically, to set up shots and use equipment and use his knowledge of filmmaking himself, plus his own style and skill, plus drawing from all of our favorite movies and previous cinematographers and directors that you kind of steal a little pinch of flavor from now and then create your own. And I think it is a perfect opportunity. I really want to see Henry have that chance, and just knock it out of the park.
Now, I mean, we're going to talk about your acting in your new film in a minute, but after having done Wolfman's Got Nards as a filmmaker, are you considering more filmmaker vehicles now?
I mean, I would love to. Those are things that I have I set up a company a number of years ago when I kind of circled back to LA in 2014, 15, and called Fitter Piper Entertainment. And it's an incubator, it's an idea shop, it's also a development place. It's a place where people can bring things that they want to work on, and we can all kind of put our heads together and see if we can get it done. But we're also a for service place. So if someone else has something that they need to get done that's already ready to go, they can certainly give us a call, and I can bring some really, really good people to bear to put it together. And so it's sort of a two-way street, as an entertainment company, which a lot just have one way. They either are a production company and they make stuff when you call them, or they're just a creative side and they go, hey, read my script and please make my movie. We do it both ways, and I think that helps. And that's filmmaking and directing is, everybody thinks they want to direct. Careful what you wish for. uh, you know uh, Developing and producing and working on things. I love putting pieces together. I love putting people and pieces together, and concepts and ideas. How that puzzle fits together, and put it in. That's that bird's eye view thing coming in. And I feel very comfortable doing that. It's a natural thing for me, and I love bringing in the people and the pieces to put things together, and that's what I enjoy. And yeah, I'd love to direct I've been asked actually my interest in directing other documentaries, because they see me as a documentary filmmaker. I've directed commercials, and I've directed spec pilots and things like that, and concepts. It's fun. It's fun. I also know that there's a lot of people that are a lot better than I am for certain things. And that's when you know that you're in the right spot. If you realize that you aren't the person for this particular job on this particular thing, bring someone in that is, and you'll be a lot better off. A lot of people are selfish, and they think they can that they should and could do it, and sometimes that's not the case. But I try to make sure I surround myself with people that are much better than I am.
So that's all. As an actor who's also has experience as a director, does that make you either a better cast member or does it make you a worse one? Because now you're like, I want to direct it that way. I would have done that.
It's tough. What you have to do is you have to really you have to separate it, and you have to realize you have to, like, okay, you're here because you're Andre Gower, and these people ask you to play this character and be these roles. This is their baby. This is their thing. So it's a fine line of where maybe you walk into something with people that aren't super experienced, or they're really excited about doing their first project, or maybe it's their 10th project, and they're struggling here and there, whatever. You got to be very aware that this isn't your project. You have a specific job, and a specific responsibility. Yet, if you can assist or lend a hand or have a good idea or take someone aside and go, you know, is it, how, let's look at it this way. Does that help you? Does it help him? Does it help the sound guy? Does it help your editor later? Does it help your, continuity person later? Does it help, in the story? How do we fix this problem? Or, hey, you're thinking it this way, which I think is good, but what I try to do is be like, I love it that, this way is great. Let's try it. But this may help too. Let's try one. And if it doesn't, then toss it. And, you just, you can't butt in. It's not your job. And that also translates when it is your job and you're the producer or the director and talent or cast or other people that's not there or trying to tell you've got to learn how to handle that as well. You got to be diplomatic, but you also got to be like, yeah, there's reasons these decisions got made that you may not be privy to, and this is how we're doing it. But that's a great idea. And don't stop being collaborative. But everybody's got to know their kind of know their spot, know their role. It's not about staying in your lane. It's not something like that, but it's just working together as a thing, because there's a lot of people that make movies happen. There's a lot of people in the room, even on a very, very small budget type thing. There's you got 5, 6, 7, 10 people standing there that are all trying to do something, and you've all got to be kind of in this. You may not be on the same page. Well, it always helps. Technically, filmmakers and crew members, if you're on the same page in your mind of what you're supposed to be shooting, you're in the right spot. But you all got to be at least in the same boat.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a canoe and there's 8 of us in there. You can't stand up and start bouncing around.
Well, now you play Father Gabriel in the film The Demons Within. So how do you get involved in the project, and what intrigued you about it?
What it was is, this is just sort of I'll get detailed, with the movie and the folks itself, but about, I don't even know what year it is now. When was the pandemic?
2020? 2021. Right? It felt like it's been 10 years long. I can't remember the exact dates anymore.
Yeah. And so what I really started about 2018, 2019 is, you get contacted a lot by local or young or new filmmakers or low budget filmmakers or small filmmakers, shorts, things like that want to make their first projects, or maybe it's their 5th project. And a lot of people were very reticent to like ask myself or Ryan Lambert or we go to these festivals, let's say you go to a film festival in Austin, Texas, and you see this rad film, you're like, and you meet the filmmaker, or you've known them for like a year or 2 or 5, and you're like, dude, that was amazing. It's like, I must have missed my email for the audition for your movie. And he's given a little ribbing for it. And what we got constantly, speaking for Ryan Lambert and myself, is like, we got a lot of people saying, oh my God, I would never ask you to be in my little shitty movie. And I was like, are you talking about the one that I just saw that was awesome? And they're like, oh my God, I would never bother you with that. And I was like, you realize we're actors. Like, this is what we do. Right. And we'd love to, like, just to get asked to be a part of something. Why would you not? Right. It's like, I'm almost like, oh, I wouldn't even think of asking. I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. And I didn't realize that a lot of those people, that we were friends with, if we'd met them before, had met them in passing over the years, would even, it's like, oh, I would never ask Ryan, or I'd never ask Andre. And so we started having these conversations with people and letting them know, it's like, it's okay, you can ask, because we'll probably do it if it's a rad project and it's put together. But if it's people, that's with people that but a lot of times you get asked to be in someone's movie that you don't know, and for most of the time, the answer is no. It's probably not something that I could or should do. A lot of times you shouldn't do it. But then I realized, with the blanket no, I felt like I was missing some opportunities to be involved in something fun, or enjoy something, or maybe helping somebody out. And so I came up with a process of responding to these asks, whether they were at a convention table or through, your, agent, or through, whatever, or if they just directing you over Instagram. And I asked 3 questions. I said, do you have financing, and do you have a movie to make? Do you have a production schedule and a date that you are hitting the red button on a camera? And are you willing, if you aren't already full bore in it, are you willing to do the very moderate amount of paperwork for SAG for myself or Ryan or us to be in your movie?
Mm.
And if the answer is yes, yes, and yes, then we can talk about the project. Then we can decide if it's something that we should or shouldn't do.
Mm.
And that started, bearing some fruit at 18, 19, and got, led to some opportunities. And then COVID shut everything down. And what I started enjoying was the fact that these people were excited that myself or we were, looking at the thing, or saying, hey, let's do this. And then COVID shut everything down, like I said. But as we're coming out of that, those requests, start popping back up. And you ask those 3 questions. And if it's something that you look at in the next step, in the next phases, and you realize that this could be something fun, or something that you just end up doing for 3 or 4 days in the middle of nowhere, that if they're bringing you in, they're paying you for your time, and that's fine. That's what we're doing. Actors are just, for hire gun. It's all what you are, really. You're just, kind of like replaceable fodder. And but when you have a name, or these people who reach out to you and they, they're fans, or they like what you've done with something else, and that's a different type of ask. And so you got to balance that a little bit. And I enjoy small films. I enjoy short films. I enjoy short filmmakers. Well, I mean, tall filmmakers too, but not in the statuesque issue. But filmmakers of all shapes and sizes are great. But when you have an opportunity to, really make someone's day, or make their project more enjoyable, and hopefully make it better, that's really the thing at the end of the day. If you can come and provide something, not just sticking a square peg in a round hole because they were a fan of, being on the Knight Rider one time, that's a different thing, and that helps them, and it kind of really gives them an amazing experience, hopefully. And I enjoy helping that local, or that regional, or that up and coming filmmaker. And if anybody tracks back, one of the projects I was working on simultaneously as we were shooting the documentary was a show concept that I ended up selling to Legendary Studios and Nerdist. The Nerdist subscription channel called Alpha. It just ended up at the wrong channel. It was a great show. It's called Short Ends, and it was a showcase and a celebration of shorts. And because you don't get to see short films a lot, unless you go to a festival that has a shorts block programming in it. And no one was really showing shorts out there, unless you were finding them on the internet. And usually those are 3, 4, 5 years old, or on someone's director reel. But no one's seeing these great things. And so I said, let's create a show, and Ryan and I will host it, and we will showcase awesome current short films that people are submitting to festivals around the world. And we will have some of the filmmakers on, and we'll interview them, talk about the process, and just kind of be sort of like a, get the ball rolling on people watching. I thought this was a great outlet for people to get to see some rad shorts. And we did 22 episodes and showcased 82 short films, and we interviewed like 35 directors or something, or 25 directors and filmmakers who now have gone on and made features and done some really rad stuff. And fortunately, the show was awesome. And Ben McShane, who you can follow him at TV Ben, or TV Bean on Twitter, I think. We got teamed up with him as a crew. We just loved doing the show, and the whole network got canceled after 2 years. It wasn't just our show, and I'd really love to bring that back. But that showed how Ryan and myself really liked to support and showcase and celebrate creatives and filmmakers and people that were trying to get this done. And because J.J. Abrams made a short one time, George Lucas made, his student films and his, garage films, and all these great, things. It's like I saw legs in the show, that as the show got longer and went forever, we'd eventually have, you get James Wan on the show. We get to showcase his short film that he made when he was in college or something, and that's where it was going, and it just ended up the whole network went under, and but the joy or kind of the fun that we get out of celebrating and supporting these people hasn't stopped. And so that's where it kind of plays into, working on films like Demons Within.
So with Demons Within, it actually had an Indiegogo campaign running. I think it's still active. What led you to have faith in the campaign and those behind it?
Well, really what it was, it's unless I'm a producer on something, I don't worry about the campaign. Like, I'm not really trying to, run that's someone else's kid.
Yeah.
Really what it was kind of they answered the three questions. They contacted me, and I remember I was traveling from one appearance to another, and I think Cody Hessling reached out to me and introduced Stephanie Hensley to myself. And they said, hey, look, this is a cool project that had some legs, I guess, a year or two ago. The production got stopped. The director left. Stephanie's taking over. She's got some rad ideas. We were going to do it different places, but we're just going to shoot it here where we live. And we've already got one or two really cool people on board. Would you be interested in looking at the project? And I asked the three questions. They said, yes, we understand that. Yes, yes, and yes. I said, send me the script and we can talk about it. And actually, I don't have my stuff. I'm blanking on the screenwriter that actually wrote the screenplay. The script was great. The draft of the script, I read it on an airplane going from one appearance to another. I was like, this is actually a really cool story with a very, very heavy performance teenage lead that could be great. And they kind of told me it was like, hey, it's this priest character, so kind of look at that. And I was like, it seems like I haven't played a priest before, and I've never done an exorcism. I've never saved a teenage girl from evil spirits. And I really thought it was the story was complex. It was was well put together. And so when you have a good story and you have a good script, if you don't have all the resources in the world to throw at it, it's easier to come up with something good because the story and the script is pretty solid. If you don't have that to begin with and try to cobble something together it's tougher. So that's another lesson, kids. Make sure at least one side of your something is very solid, and you just save a lot of headaches. And they were now filmmaking is totally different. Back in the day when you had big budgets and studios behind everything, or even independent money behind your project, you had 21, 25, 35 days to shoot a feature, and now people are cranking out features in 15 days.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do. And have some depth or some gravity to it. And if you want to if you want to watch the difference of movies that are made in 15 days for not a lot of money, click on whatever channel in your area that Lifetime is and watch Lifetime movies, which are fantastic for what they are, but they're made like that and they just turn them out. So everybody's kind of trying to work on this kind of like 15-day schedule or so or less. I've been on some stuff that's even less than that. And it's just all how you approach it and how you plan and how you have the people that are coming that will give you long hours. And, you got to be smart about it. You got to have, a lot of friends and family pitch in if you're shooting local. And that's kind of seen what this was happening with Demons Within from the beginning. And, the other thing that, kind of really the fourth question is when do you need me or us? And does that work in my schedule? Because if the other three and you like the project, then the next two steps is, do you like the project? Is it something that you should be involved in? And does it fit in are you able to go and put that time into it? And it all kind of worked out. So I carved it out. And then what was awesome about that is, we had the conversation, and Ryan Lambert ended up being in Demons Within as well. So we flew, they flew Ryan into Ohio for, a day and a half of shooting. And, it was just fun. And that's sort of the example of being someone in a position that can, all you've got to lend to something like that is your face and your experience and your time. And if that's something that fulfills you, then that's always a good experience.
Now, in the summary for the film Demons Within, it says based on true events. Now, did they give you any information about what they actually based the script on? Like what events actually occurred from that?
I think what it was a personal story from the screenwriter, and growing up in her situation and kind of putting that personal touch into this character.
Hmm.
And like I said, because the lead character is is an older teenage girl who's is dealing with the fact that she ends up having this kind of built up kind of possession issue. We've seen demon possession movies
Yeah.
a lot. They're start with the exorcism if you want to, but that's sort of in the middle of all the demon possession movies of all time. And it the true events I think slung around something that the screenwriter had experienced or knew, put that on the page, and hopefully it translates well. I haven't seen a cut of it. I think it's close to being polished off or finished, and looking forward to see what gets put together, because like I said, it's that example. This isn't my film. It's not I didn't make it. I was just in it, and but you spend just a few days with people like this that are really really putting about 20-hour days in trying to make something happen, and you're just trying to show up and not mess it up for them, and hopefully you can improve their day and make their 20-hour day a little bit easier. And at the end of the day, when they hit lock and save file, that that you've contributed to helping them do what they were set out to do. And I'm looking forward to seeing it, because there's a lot. It's tough to make movies. Making movies is not rocket science. On paper, it's not rocket science. It's not that hard. It's very straightforward.
Right.
The actual mechanics and the emotion and the time and the things that you can't see, the obstacles that come up in the middle of the day that can ruin not only your day but your entire film. Especially when you're running on thin margins and thin time. It's easier to absorb that in a big budget thing. You can just cancel a day; it doesn't matter. You can't cancel a day on something that you only have 15 days to shoot. You've got to find a workaround and how to fix that on that minute. And there's not a lot of wasted time. Boy, back in the day when we made movies like, TV shows, there's big budgets and you're shooting 3-4 pages a day. That's nothing. Now people are trying to shoot 8, 9, 10, 15 pages a day. That's called running and gunning, man. That's running and gunning. And so as the old fart, you got to keep up with that now.
So in the film, the girl who's possessed is named Izzy. But there's a question in the film, especially early on, is it a psychological disorder or is she possessed? Now, does Father Gabriel immediately believe Izzy's possessed? And is there a question of, if he's wrong, what are the moral implications of going forward on an exorcism on a girl who might just be having some difficulties?
Right. So it's a good blend of, kind of old school, kind of exorcism based kind of mindset, or is it, something different? And I think what's really neat is in the original script on the page, like the introduction scene between Father Gabriel and Izzy is, he feels something. He meets this girl who's obviously troubled. She's in the hospital, and that's where he passes by and just kind of strikes up a conversation, because I guess he hangs out in the hospital. And there's kind of a something that he sees in her. She's troubled. He's a priest. He helps people and he connects with people. And whether he felt an evil presence or whether he felt a young girl in trouble, regardless of what it is, he kind of connected and was intrigued. And then what's interesting is, as soon as he walks out of the room, like the mother or the parents are like, "We don't want you here. Go away." Like, and so he's like, "Okay, well, there's nothing I can do." And, eventually he still stays interested, and he gets a call, and it gets bad enough to where, you gotta, you gotta call that guy back you didn't want involved. And he's kind of going against, his boss's wishes, or commands, not wishes, his orders. And, cause exorcism is an ancient ritual. It's an ancient right. There's only like a handful of people that have ever been, in the church lore, that are able to do it or capable of doing it. And this guy does not have, the training or the ability or the approval to go ahead and try to help. But as a person, Father Gabriel, I think, in the overall story, is someone who is driven to say, none of that matters. What's important is the well-being of this girl and her family ultimately. And so he makes that decision, whether it costs him his collar or not. I think it's things like that, and we don't get too involved in that. You got to read. You just kind of read between the lines. And if this was a 10-episode Netflix miniseries, we'd be going into the background of Father Gabriel and the problems he has with his Monsignor and who happens to be Ryan Lambert. So it's giving instructions not to do this, but I think it's about just helping people in need, whether you wear a black suit and a white collar, or blue overalls, or a badge, or a tweed jacket in someone's high school. It's there are people out there that whose first instinct is to help someone.
So for the incident, the exorcism, because you said this is probably something he hasn't done before, does finding Izzy possessed, how does that impact him from a point of view of faith? I mean, obviously, if it's a real demon, there's a question. Obviously, there's a God, but the question of belief in that the God exists, or belief in God as something that cares about those who are the humans, how does he handle that struggle?
I think I think like his first thing is like, it doesn't matter what it is. No one else is helping this. I'm the only chance, we're the only chance for this girl, I think now. I don't have time to convince you and everybody else. It just has to be done. And going with him, I think, like I said, if we could have a 10-episode Netflix series on this story, would be amazing, because you get deeper. Maybe he tried it before and royally messed up, or didn't succeed. And I actually kind of wanted Father Gabriel to be sort of this like tortured soul, kind of like priest, whether he's about to hang it up and he's like, I'm gonna start drinking, and I wanted him to be really kind of torn up, but we were like, no, he's actually kind of a put together guy. It's okay. And I had to shave and everything. So that hadn't happened in like 20 years. And so you're gonna see a completely different mug when you watch this movie, and I don't even know how it's gonna look on camera. Hopefully it's not scary, but I think it's just something that and then once he does get the call, from the mother, it's like, we need your help. Then it's a done deal. And I don't think he was wavering anything. He was going in to make this happen, whether it killed him or it didn't matter.
So what was it like working with Ryan Lambert again?
It's great, because Ryan's amazing when he's in front of the camera, and he can do little subtle things and really do more with not a lot. But I'm so used to being around him, because we spent so much time together, and we're usually cutting up and telling stupid jokes and laughing like silly little kids, and saying things like "Pepe go pop pop," and just being goofs. And but then to get serious and do something awesome, be like, oh man, that was really good. That was really good. And so it's fun. And we got to work on the doc. He was with us for the doc shoot, because we dragged him on the tour, and interviews all the time and all these appearances. And then Ryan and I co-hosted that Short Ends thing, so we worked for months on that show. And Ryan and I really are just a good pair. We are very similar in our goofiness, but we couldn't be completely different people more. and but we have a very similar outlook on things, and we have a very completely different outlook on other things. But we just work, and we're funny. We've spent so much time together that he can look at me and I know what he wants me to say, and vice versa, whether we're doing a Q&A with an audience, or whether we're on camera doing a movie or doing our hosted show, and we play off each other. It's just, it's if someone would just give it the chance, it's a Laurel and Hardy thing. It's a Smothers Brothers, perfection. It's whatever great comedy or cool duo you could ever come up with. Like we're just as good.
So are we going to see more of Andre Gower and Ryan Lambert doing films or TV and things of that nature coming up?
Well, I mean, that's the goal. You know, Demons Within was the latest and the next thing. We actually ended up doing a scene or two for a friend of mine, Derek Johnson, who was also has made some really good documentaries in the past, and he um, uh, things like, I'm going to give a plug to my friends here. It's good. Derek Johnson and Chris May made some great docs called "The King of the Underdogs" about John G. Avildsen, the director. Um, a thing. A Frank Stallone documentary, which is amazing to me because it's called Stallone Frank. That is, and that's a very well put together doc. And what's interesting with me is Derek called me um, in April or May of 21 and said, "What are you doing in July?" And I said, "Dude, this is everything shut. Like, I have no idea. What do you got?" And he's like, "Well, the project we were going to do isn't happening. I've got to do something. If you're in, I'm going to start writing the script with my writing partner." And I said, "What do you got?" He's like, "I don't know yet. I just want to know if you're in." And I said, "Where are we doing it?" He goes, "We're doing it at my place in East Texas." I said, "I'm in." And so they spent about 2 months and they banged out a screenplay and sent it to me. It was um, a rad kind of small town, current day crime noir type story. And he wrote the script with me as the lead. And I was like, "I love it. Let's do it." And I was gearing up and getting in shape, to go be in Derek's movie in July of 21. And the week before I was supposed to fly out there, the flight was booked. So it was Chris May, the producer, had booked the flight and sent me the itinerary. And the week or a week and a half before I was supposed to fly out is when I ended up going down with a massive heart attack.
Oh,
And on July 3rd. And I was supposed to be there like on July 12th to start shooting this movie.
yeah.
And they wouldn't let me go do that. I was like, I think I can do it. I think, because I didn't die on the morning of the 3rd, which is the first good thing. And then, but that's a big thing to go through. And I had to bow out of that. They went and shot the movie, and so now a year later they're working on finishing it, and they have another kind of distributor partner in it, and they wanted some extra scenes. And so coming full circle, Derek called me, was like, "Hey man, I've got some extra scenes. I know you couldn't, we couldn't get you here because of the incident on Court
Hmm.
5 is what I call it. And then but I've written a scene to play that character that you were, a different character, but will you come in and shoot that scene at some point?" And I said, "When are you trying to do that?" He said, "Well, in November." And this was last fall. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you can do it in October, Ryan and I will both be in Texas doing multiple appearances. We can shoot over and do it for a day or two and get out." He's like, "Ryan's gonna be," he goes, I'll add a whole new thing that Ryan has his scene." And I was like, "Perfect." And so we just kind of gelled it into the day. So Ryan and I got to be in an additional scene in the movie that I was supposed to be the lead in that I couldn't shoot the year before. And so what I told Derek was like, "Okay, so you're putting Ryan and I in as these characters in this," and we have a scene. I said, "The next one is the prequel to this movie with these two characters as the main guys, right?" And he's like, "Done." So it's all how you strategize everything, Joe. It's all how
Right,
you strategize everything.
right.
But that worked out well in timing, and those are some things you can do when you don't have the time or a lot of the resources, or you're trying to help something, get finished up like that. And we happened to be in Dallas for the premiere of another movie that I did with a bunch of local filmmakers called Retro Freaks, out of Dallas, Texas, with David Ryan, the director, and some guys that I know from their YouTube channels in the toy collectible world. And it was a fun thing. They said, "Can you come in and would you be interested in doing a day in this film?" And that was in August of last year. And I said, "Well, if I'm heading to the East Coast, if you want to get me there and I'll stop for a day or two and then bolt where I'm supposed to be, if you can make that work, then I'd love to do it." So it's another example of the 3 questions.
Mm.
And so that worked out in three different ways, all within 3 months last fall. So last summer and fall. So these are all cool things that I think Retro Freaks they're festivaling it now. I think you can actually order a Blu-ray that they're putting it out for some reason. They're still working on it, but we're now working on the second feature, a second kind of project with those guys. And hopefully, Ryan and I get a couple days on the next feature with that crew, and or just Ryan or just me, because we enjoy doing it and it's fun to do. And like I said, when you can add something to someone's production as an experience, and it's positive, then you should do it. I don't suggest going and jumping in thinking you're the shit and going in and ruining someone's day when they're trying to make a movie, and you come in as some putz and just take a big dump all over what these people are trying to do. That's not what you should be doing.
So when does The Demons Within, do you have any information on when it may be released or how close they are to a release?
I don't, because I'm not sure. Hopefully get an update here soon. Then I know they are finishing it as an actual edit, and I don't know if they're going to shop it around, if they're going to festival it first, or if they're just going to kind of release it if they get some sort of direct distribution kind of access, be it through a streamer or service or something like that. I'm not quite sure what they're planning to do with it, but it's probably due for a conversation with that producing crew, and kind of think, but kind of just talk about what they're doing. I haven't seen it. I can't wait to see it, to see how it turned out too, and then that will dictate a lot of how they should be approaching it.
Well, sir, it's been an absolute honor to talk with you, sir. When you're ready to talk about the other projects, you need to come back on and definitely do some more episodes.
Hey man, I'm here. It's me talking about fun stuff. I can do that all day. Awesome. Thanks for having me.